Alright, moving along here with the project. I've gone ahead and taken a Sharpie marker and numbered each one of these ribs here. As you can see here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on from 1 to 19. And this is just a temporary number. When I take them off and get them cleaned up, that's more than likely going to get sanded off. So I will be renumbering them, but this will help me to know which one is which right at the moment. And I also went ahead and put the lines on the back, as I explained before. That will give me a good indicator of how much of these I need to trim down when I'm doing my cleanup. Now I'm only going to take one off at a time. I don't want to take them all off at the same time, because I run the risk of misnumbering them or you know, losing the order. So I'm going to take one of them off at a time, get it cleaned up, get it renumbered, and then I'm going to do, you know, one at a time all the way until I get through the end. I just figured that's the best way to do it, to avoid the possibility of getting them mixed up at all. I just don't want to take the chance on that. So I'm going to do one at a time, being very careful to pull them off. I don't want to break these at all. You got to be very careful. They are strong. They're 3 layers strong, so they shouldn't break, but don't just go on there and start Incredible Hulk in that shit, because you never know. Fiberglass is kind of finicky, so especially be careful as you're disconnecting it from the bottom there. These are a little more frail because they don't have the vertical support, but they are 2 layers thick, so they shouldn't be weak or anything. It's just, you got to be careful with it, especially when you're disconnecting it from the timber. You want to be careful with that as well. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and get started pulling these off, again, one at a time, and then I'll get them cleaned up and then renumbered, and we should be good to go for starting to mount them up on the other side and taking a look at the phantom shape, if you will. Alright, let me get started here. So here is number 1 off of the car. As expected, it came off with very, very little difficulty. It was actually very nice, and you can see that nice smooth edge along the bottom there, and that is the shape that we're looking for there. You can see this little area right here, which is where the door handle was just starting to pop up right there. It's going to give me a little extra help with the other side, to give me a little bit of a registration mark, as I was talking about before, because that should line up with the other door handle if I have it in the correct position, so that's actually a good thing. But you can see just capturing the shape of the door there perfectly, and then just the very front part of the flare right there. So this is exactly what we're looking for. Now we're going to end up shaving off this horizontal base right there. We don't need that. If we were to keep that on there, it's actually going to throw us off quite a bit, because we can't have any curvature at all in it, because the curvature is not going to match on the other side at all. So we just need that vertical part, but we had to include this horizontal base so that it stayed strong. It didn't flex to the left and right when we were laying up our vertical fiberglass. So I'm going to end up cutting that off and then sanding this down, of course removing the clay. We no longer need that clay there. I can go ahead and get rid of that and take the tin foil off and all that and save as much of the clay as I can. And then we're going to be left with just one vertical rib that should be, you know, a pretty good thickness. You don't want it too thick, because then it's going to confuse you and throw you off. So this is what it looks like, taken right off the car. Came right off of there, no problem. So let's go ahead and get this one cleaned up. We'll get it relabeled, and then we'll move on to 2, 3, 4, 5, and etc. So here's a look at it with the clay removed at this point. You can see just that line there is left of the line that we marked on the back. That's how much of the top that we're going to be cutting off. We don't need that at all. And also a good look at the horizontal base. The 2 layers that we put down as the horizontal base, we're also going to be cutting those off as well. It's coming along, guys, looking pretty good. There's our base there, and you can see that little flat spot down at the bottom that we're going to be using to reattach to the timber right there, back to the 0 position right there. So it should match up perfectly on the other side, but looking real good, guys. Alright, got all of the ribs off of the car at this point, and I got them all cleaned up. Let me head over to the other side of the car, and surprise, we got all of the ribs on the other side of the car in the proper positions, or as close as I possibly could. We got the measuring line up at the top now at this point, and also the measuring line at the bottom. Measured to as precisely to the other side as I possibly could. You can see now that the ribs are all nicely cleaned up, nicely trimmed down, and so there's no loose fiberglass, or at least not an excessive amount of loose fiberglass and all that. So they're fairly easy to handle and reposition if I need to do so. We have them all laid up at this point. This is going to be the skeleton, if you will, of the new sculpt on the other side. It is going to be a whole lot more accurate than it would be if I was just doing this with my eye. It's not going to be perfect in certain areas just because there was so much detail, so many little curves and things like that that didn't translate well onto this side. You can see that I ended up removing quite a few of the base pieces on some of these because they just were not lining up at all. There was way too much curve and wave in them, but it's not going to be too detrimental at all. These are so accurate up here that I was able to just lay them down and then support them toward the base as well as the top, so it's going to be just fine there. But you can see as you look through there, hopefully you can see, if you see just in the center of the flare here, just in those little pockets right between the actual tinfoil and the body of the car and the fiberglass ribs, there's just a little pocket right there, and that's exactly where our clay is going to be going, inside there. And these are not in the exact positions that they're going to be. I'm actually not going to keep them all on the car as I'm sculpting. There just wouldn't be enough room for me to sculpt in between each one of them. So I'm going to end up taking them all off the car again, and then starting from one end of the car, probably, or one end of the flare rather, probably this side, and then just do one rib at a time, filling in the clay as I go along until I get toward the back. And that should be just fine. But you can see how we got the flare in the perfect position there on this side as well. All of those ribs are perfectly coming out to that point and lining up with the little ridge at the top where we had fiberglassed them on the other side of the car. We used that little ridge right there as a registration mark, this ridge. So they're all kind of laying in that little slot right there real nice. That was a great indicator for where they need to sit at the top. And then of course this curve right here of the polyurethane flare was a perfect registration mark for the bottom part of it as well. Now things got quite tricky on this portion right here, this back portion. What I had to actually do is take my heat gun and bend these ribs in the opposite direction, because over here, back when we fiberglassed them onto the flare, the line came down and I miscalculated a little bit. I actually made a little bit of a mistake when I did this. Not afraid to admit it. Like I said, I'm not a pro at this, but you know, mistakes do happen. But the line came down, and then it was actually, you know, because of the actual shape of the flare, the line ended up coming in this way, and so I ended up fiberglassing along the line. I wanted to follow that line perfectly, almost to a fault. And what I should have done is accounted for that curve right there and maybe laid the fiberglass rib in a counter direction to counter that curve, because when I took those off, got them cleaned up, and then brought them over to the other side, of course they had that curve in it. So when I laid it down in this position, they were actually curving into where the design of the flare should be. So what I ended up doing is just taking my heat gun right at this joint right here on about the last 4 of them, and ended up bending it in the opposite direction. And now it's still not perfect, but it's definitely the shape of the flare through the back there, and it's not bending into the actual design. So it should work out just fine. This is looking perfect, a perfect amount of space in there, and I've just taken a ton of reference photos of every single possible direction and everything, so I'm going to be getting this as absolutely close as I possibly can. Now, like I said, it's not going to be perfect. I mean, there's just way too much detail, way too much variation. Every little curve that translates from that side over to this side could create a little variance, and you know, it's just the nature of it. So in any case, it should turn out really good. I'm very excited. Now the biggest difference between this side and the other side is of course going to be the gas cap. And now you can see how I've got that all labeled out and marked out there, so I know exactly where it's at through the tinfoil. Now we're going to be sculpting around the gas cap. I'm not going to relocate the gas cap or anything like that. I'm going to keep it there, and I'm going to do the indentation style flare, which, you know, I always kind of like the look of it. I think it looks kind of cool. Kind of looks like the car's wearing body armor, if you know what I mean. So we are going to be definitely taking the gas cap into consideration when we're sculpting this side of the car. What I will probably end up doing is actually opening up the cap, opening up the door, whatever you want to call it, the gas cap door, and then making sure that it clears. I want to absolutely make sure that it clears the sculpt before I just sculpt it all on there and assume that it's going to open, because that would be very stupid if I got the whole thing sculpted and cast and everything only to find out that the damn gas cap door doesn't open. I'm going to definitely take that into account. This whole section, of course, will not apply, so to speak, like it does on the other side. So that's going to be the biggest difference between this side and the other. Besides that, there'll be little minor, hopefully very, very minimal minor differences between this flare and the driver's side flare. That's the plan anyways. I'm going to do the best I can, and I'll keep working at it until I'm satisfied. I'm very happy to say that I'm going to be starting laying up clay on this thing very, very soon. Like, I'm going to start tomorrow on laying up clay finally. It's going to be awesome. I'm so ready to get this other one sculpted on there. Here's a good look at this detailed section right here on the side. You can see all that, the gap right here that we're going to be adding the clay. So I'm going to end up taking all these off and just doing a blanket of clay and then just working my way one side to the other, just like I said. Alright, but that's where we're at for the time being. It's looking good, guys. Thank you so much for those of you who are following this build. I know it's kind of slow. My updates are a little slow, and I do apologize for that. Life is life, and I don't have an unlimited amount of time, but I am working on this as much as I possibly can. A little bit to a fault. My wife is a little pissed off at me because of how much time I'm spending out here in the garage, but she does understand this is a big deal for me, so trying to get it up and out for you guys as quickly as possible. I do thank you guys for your patience and for joining me on this this journey here. It's turning out great, I think. I think it's really looking good so far. I'm very happy, and I'm gonna keep on hitting it real hard. Also wanted to remind you guys who are following me that my giveaway is still going on until this Thursday. That's the 13th. That's going to be the cutoff date for you guys to get your names in. Send me that DM on Instagram. Send me your name, your email, your Instagram name, and your YouTube name, and I will get your name on the list. You got to make sure you're subscribed to me on YouTube and following me on Instagram. I will match up the names to make sure that you are. And then once I got all that information, I'm going to put every name that I get on a list. And this coming Friday after Thursday, so the 14th, I'm gonna pull 5 names randomly from every name that I've gotten so far, and up to that time, and then those 5 people are gonna be getting those sticker packs. Be sure to send me that DM with that information, subscribe to me on YouTube, follow me on Instagram, and you'll be able to get a chance of getting a sticker pack. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about with the giveaway situation, I do have a video that I put up regarding the giveaway, the information that I'm doing right now. It's a 1-week giveaway that's been going since last Thursday. So it's a chance to go pick up some stickers that I've made, a couple of Miyabi Kings in black and white, and then also the old school Japanese flag with the Shigato style katakana on it. Check it out. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out if you want to know what I'm talking about. Maybe you can win yourself some stickers. Now, I do have some of you guys that are asking to buy some of the stickers. If you don't win, or even if you do win and you want to buy more, I will be putting some of those up for sale. I don't have an exact date at the moment, but I definitely am going to be putting some of them up for sale. And not only those, I'm going to actually be doing some more as well, so stay tuned for that. So that's going to be it for this video, guys. Sorry, it's a little bit of a shorter one this time, but I'm going to get to laying up this clay as quickly as possible and get a nice big fat video up for you guys next time. Thanks so much for following, guys. I really appreciate it. You guys make me happy. I love bringing this content to you guys, and hope to keep on bringing more and more. All right, guys, I'll talk to you all later. Peace.